I only read one book, but it's a good book, don't you know? I act the way I act because the good book tells me so. If I want to know how to be good, it's to the good book that I go. Because the good book is a book, and it is good, and it's a book.
Then, just as Joseph had promised unto his father and his brethren about how he would announce their arrival unto Pharaoh in the previous chapter, Joseph came and told Pharaoh, and said, My father and my brethren, and their flocks, and their herds, and all that they have, are come out of the land of Canaan. And behold, they are in the land of Goshen. And because it was said in the previous chapter that every shepherd is an abomination unto the Egyptians, Pharaoh did think on this for a while, and then did ask unto Joseph if these flocks were flocks of geese, and if the herds were herds of cattle. And Joseph did entirely miss the point of the question. And he took some of his brethren, even 5 men, and presented them unto Pharaoh, just in case Pharaoh didn't believe him. And Pharaoh, who wanted to be sure that those before him were indeed an abomination, said unto his brethren, What is your occupation? And they said unto Pharaoh, Thy servants are shepherds, both we and also our fathers. And Pharaoh did reel in disgust, and did climb up upon his throne, and shoo them away, until Joseph did calm him down. And when he was listening again, and Joseph had once more brought unto him his comfort blanket, they said moreover unto Pharaoh, For to sojourn in the land are we come. For thy servants have no pasture for their flocks, for the famine is sore in the land of Canaan. Now, therefore, we pray thee, let thy servants dwell in the land of Goshen. And beckoning unto Joseph, so that he could whisper unto his ear, Pharaoh spake unto Joseph, saying, Thy father and thy brothers are come unto thee, but did you really have to bring them here unto me? And then he did smile unto Joseph's brethren, and did say, The land of Egypt is before thee. In the best of the land make thy father and thy brethren to dwell. In the land of Goshen let them dwell, the far end of Goshen, if possible. And if thou knowest any men of activity who might just be cowboys among them, then make them rulers over my cattle. And because show and tell was not yet over, Joseph brought in Jacob, his father, who wasn't particularly feeling like being called Israel today, and set him before Pharaoh, and Jacob blessed Pharaoh. And after Pharaoh did look him up and down, he did say unto Jacob, How old art thou? And Jacob said unto Pharaoh, The days of the years of my pilgrimage are 130 years. And Pharaoh did cough suddenly, in a way that did sound as though he did say the word bullshit. And he did look unto him, and did say, 130, my arse. Who art thou trying to kid? The average life expectancy around these parts is just over 30, especially as dental science has yet to be invented, and the cure for just about everything is either powdered pigeon or burnt dung, to drive out the demons. But Jacob was unmoved, and did continue, But few and evil have the days of the years of my life been, and have not attained unto the days of the years of the life of my fathers in the days of their pilgrimage. For it has been all of my days, as though I art part of some long-running drama with unlikely events, occurring with frightening regularity, and then being resolved almost as soon as they doth happen by what would seem to be improbable means. Almost as if someone was sat in a tent somewhere just making this shit up as they did go along. And Pharaoh did look upon him, and unto him did say, Well, if I looked as like you do when I was 130, I would be jumping for joy. And besides, who doth say that thou shalt not live as long as thy fathers? As after all, thou art still above the ground, and breathing art thou. And Jacob did have to agree that maybe Pharaoh was indeed correct, as after all, in just the last chapter, the Lord had told him that one day he would yet return to Canaan, and as a principal character it was unlikely that he would soon die, unless the tiger blood in his veins did run hot, and he did call someone an arsehole. And after mumbling unto himself, and a great deal of dithering, Jacob blessed Pharaoh, and went out from before Pharaoh. And Joseph placed his father and his brethren, and gave them a possession in the land of Egypt, in the best of the land, in the land of Ramesses, as Pharaoh had commanded. And lo, there were those in Egypt that did complain unto Pharaoh, that while the peoples of the land did starve, these immigrants and asylum seekers were simply being given all that was best in the land, simply for walking over the border from Canaan. And the Daily Mail was outraged, and members of the Egyptian Defence League did go on a march. And Joseph nourished his father, and his brethren, and all 70 of his father's household, with bread according to their families, and did grant them housing benefits, so that as they could rent a grand palace in the most exclusive part of Cairo, that did have 70 bedrooms, and leave the taxpayer with the bill. For surely it is known that it is not what thou dost know, but who, that shall get us thee the fine things in life. And because, no matter how self-sufficient thou may be, eventually hoarders' supplies and stockpiles will run out. And so there was no bread in all the land, for the famine was very sore, and had been going on for a number of years by now, so that the land of Egypt and all the land of Canaan fainted by reason of the famine. And so the people of these lands did have to turn unto Joseph and his government stockpiles for aid. And because by this time he was practically running a monopoly, and could literally charge what he did want for corn, Joseph gathered up all the money that was found in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan for the corn which they bought. And Joseph brought the money into Pharaoh's house. And Pharaoh did jump up and down upon his bed, while Joseph did shower him with it. And of the money that he did not squirrel away in offshore accounts in places like Switzerland and the Cayman Islands, he did wipe his back passage with, and did purchase a dancing cart horse called Rafalka. And lo, despite such supply-side economics sounding so reasonable, that wealth would indeed pass down unto the poor, as those that were wealthy did spend their great riches, the wealthy did indeed have so much money that they could not spend it. And when money failed in the land of Egypt, and in the land of Canaan, because the only person who did have any was Pharaoh, and everyone else was so penniless that they did share a pot to piss in, for they could not just afford to pay for one of their own, all the Egyptians came unto Joseph, and said, Give us bread, for why should we die in thy presence? For the money faileth. And not knowing that this narrative would one day be used by those who would not read it as a shining example of charity and sacrifice unto thy fellow man in times of great hardship, and being the kind of businessman that wasn't satisfied with just owning all of the money in the land, Joseph said, Give your cattle, and I will give you for your cattle if money fail. And he did open up cash generator shops all across the land, so that the people could sell their belongings for food. And they brought their cattle unto Joseph. And Joseph gave them bread in exchange for horses, and for the flocks, and for the cattle of the herds, and for the asses. And he fed them with bread for all their cattle for that year. And in times to come, in centuries hence, there would be people who would not see a problem with this, and would call such a thing capitalism, even though yet more of the wealth and prosperity did pass unto the state, as the state did sell unto the people that which the people had freely given unto the state to be stockpiled for times of need. And when that year was ended, they came unto him the second year, and said unto him, We will not hide it from my lord, how that our money is spent. My lord also hath our herds of cattle, so that that cattle would belong unto Pharaoh. And so, going by the verse, just 12 verses before this one, would be looked after and maintained by Joseph's family, in the land of Goshen, as commanded by Pharaoh. And the people did say, There is not aught left in the sight of my lord, but our bodies, and our lands, which did give Joseph yet another idea. Wherefore shall we die before thine eyes, both we and our land? Buy us and our land for bread, and we and our land will be servants unto Pharaoh, and give us seed, that we may live and not die, that the land be not desolate. And lo, the concept of mortgage slavery was invented, as the people did turn over their land and did work for free, that Joseph would give them bread. And Joseph bought all the land of Egypt for Pharaoh, For Pharaoh was the only man in the land who did have any money, and he did need much land, for he did suddenly find himself with an awful lot of livestock. For the Egyptians sold every man his field, because the famine prevailed over them. So the land became Pharaoh's, and the 0.1% did literally own all that was in the land, and the other 99.9% were invited to go stand in the river that Pharaoh did not own, along with the crocodiles, if they did like as not the situation. And as for the people who Pharaoh did now own also, he removed them to cities, from one end of the borders of Egypt, even to the other end thereof, for they did now no longer have a say in the matter. Only the land of the priests bought he not, for even in those days religious institutions did receive special treatment. For the priests had a portion assigned them of Pharaoh, and did eat their portion which Pharaoh gave them, while telling their congregations that they should be self-sufficient, and not rely on government welfare and handouts, for that was what black people, who doth rely on entitlements, rather than get a job, doth do, and it shall make them lazy. Therefore they sold not their lands, as they had no need to. Then, upon whence the moment had finally arrived, for him to bring his plans to fruition, Joseph said unto the people, Behold, I have bought you this day, and your land for Pharaoh. Lo, here is seed for you, and ye shall sow the land, for the stockpiles of corn are yet now running low, and need refilling. And it shall not be long before the people doth work out that the only reason that there is a famine is because nobody is producing any food, since the whole population has been moved off the farmland and into the cities. And it shall come to pass, in the increase, that ye shall give the 5th part unto Pharaoh, as both an income tax and as rent, for the land that thou doth farm, and 4 parts shall be your own, for seed of the field, and for your food, and for them of the households, and for food for your little ones. And they said, Thou hast saved our lives. Let us find grace in the sight of my Lord, and we will be Pharaoh's servants. And the people were indeed happy, that they now no longer owned the land that had been theirs from the days of their fathers, and their fathers' fathers, and that they would from that day forth pay a rent and a tax that would equal 20% of their income, because when the economy did crash, Pharaoh did sell unto them that which they had given Pharaoh for free. And Joseph made it a law over the land of Egypt unto this day, that Pharaoh should have the 5th part, except the land of the priests only, which became not Pharaoh's. And lo, even in those days religious institutions did have a tax-exempt status. And Israel, who in this context was the household of Jacob and his sons, and not just Jacob, going by his secret identity, that no one did seem to know him by, dwelt in the land of Egypt, in the country of Goshen, and they had possessions therein, and grew and multiplied exceedingly, for everyone doth know that this is what immigrants and asylum seekers doth do, for there is a great deal of money to be made in child benefit payments. And Jacob lived in the land of Egypt 17 years, and in that time nothing else interesting ever again happened unto him. So the whole age of Jacob was 147 years. And Jacob did take the hint that he was soon to shuffle off this mortal coil and join the choir eternal, and so he did think it time to get his singing voice in tune. And the time drew nigh that Israel must die, for he had watched a videotape that had been sent unto him, that did feature nothing but a series of random images and a white circle. And afterwards he had received a phone call from a young girl that did tell him that he did have but 7 days, and he called his son Joseph, and said unto him, If now I have found grace in thy sight, put, I pray thee, thy hand unto my thigh, and deal kindly and truly with me. Bury me not, I pray thee, in Egypt. And with the pained expression of someone who doth catch a turd, Joseph did so as his father had instructed, and did cradle the old man's wizened nutsack. And lo, like the land of Egypt, Joseph did too hold his father by the balls. And Jacob did jump up from his bed, and in a high falsetto did exclaim that he was staying alive. And he did verily berate Joseph for not warming his hands first, and then did continue. But I will lie with my fathers, and thou shalt carry me out of Egypt, and bury me in their burying place. And after he did ask him why he should be the one that shall carry him unto Canaan, when already the Lord had promised that he would bring his father out of Egypt. And then when he did see the stern look upon his father's face, he said, I will do as thou hast asked. And he said, Swear unto me. And he sware unto him, and did call him a stupid old fuck, and a useless old bastard, and a great many more profanities besides. And Israel bowed himself upon his bedhead, and with sorrowful music the scene did fade unto black. And out in the desert, in a tent by a palm tree, the Lord did read what had just been written, and then did ask the old man if he did understand it correctly. And he said, So after the collapse of the grain market, when the people's stores of food ran out, they did turn unto Joseph, to whom they had previously given 1/5 of all that they had previously produced, so that he would put it aside, lest they should need it, because such welfare would be unsustainable, and would lead to dependency. He did instead sell it back unto them. For this was the way of the free market. And so he was able to amass all of the money, all of the livestock, and eventually all of the land of Egypt from its people, who did then submit into servitude unto Pharaoh, for they now had nothing. And so the people were then tasked back to work, rebuilding the nation. And for this work they did have to pay a 20% tax unto those that did already own everything, for working the land that was no longer theirs. And the people were happy at this, and did thank him greatly, and did complain not that they had been made to pay for that which was already theirs in the first place. And the old man did say, Yes. And the Lord, who was indeed in all places at all times, both at this time and far in the future, did think on this for a moment, and did then ask if the old man would copy out just that last bit on its own. And the man did so, and handed it up unto the Lord, who did take it with him on his way. And lo, far in the future, many centuries hence, in a land where the states are united, in a city called Washington, D.C., a man called Paul shall enter into a place that he doth call an office, and shall find upon the table at which he doth sit a package addressed unto him. And in it shall be the pages that the old man did write, and this man shall read them, and find inspiration within the writings, and he shall show them unto others, and declare that their message is the way forward, and from that day onwards they shall be known hence as the path to prosperity.